Hi everybody, this is part 2 of our handwriting video in terms of talking to you about joins. So when children enter the summer term of year 1, our expectations from this year was to start introducing joins to your child, but we felt doing that virtually with everything else going on wasn't the right time to do that. So for year 1 parents, please do use the summer to encourage joins if you feel that your child can do everything in the last video. For any parents of children in reception and year 2, you may also find this useful because children learn to write at different ages, but it's important that they've got all the features of the last video in terms of their handwriting. And please also bear in mind that different schools focus on different fonts and different styles. We will show you what we do here at Woodlands, which mirrors what we do at Shirley Heath as well as our transition school. But it's important to note that when anybody moves from single letters into joins, that it is perfectly normal for your child's handwriting to regress slightly. So as you can see here, we've got one of our books that we use with the children to support with handwriting. But moving forward, you'll see a lot more handwriting activities taking place in the outdoor area with sticks in forest school, with chalks on the floor outside, using paintbrushes, because by the time they're moving to joins, they should understand all the features of how to hold a pen correctly and can move to using different apparatus and resources as well. And that just encourages children to be a bit more immersed into a new change for them, because as things regress slightly, it stops their confidence from being knocked as well. So here you can see we start with 2-letter joins, and a lot of these are done by digraphs and trigraphs. So if you're doing some phonics work with your child, you can have a little look at that as well, and being mindful of what an ascender and a descender is as well, so that if you're doing a join with either of those in, that you can use that vocabulary with your child as well. The same thing in the last video applies, making sure that all words are sitting on the line and encouraging any floater or sinking letters, but praise your child for when they're doing something right. So I'm going to start with an error of my own here as I copy this join, and then we'll look at what vocabulary we can use to encourage a child who might just need a little bit more support. So I know if I'm doing a U and I'm doing an N, I know that I can form those letters correctly. There's no point me moving on to doing a join if I don't know where those letters start. I've also got my letters sitting beautifully on the line and they're at the same height. So encourage your child to begin joins by starting off with the singular letters by themselves. And then if you can get a different coloured pen, and don't worry if not, I'm going to model without, you can do dots to show where those 2 letters are going to be holding hands. Then if you can model with somebody in your home when you're holding hands, try doing it far away so they can see the gap, but then doing it a little bit closer and say we're going to do that with our letters. We're going to encourage them to hold hands and be next to each other. So instead of having a join like this, we're going to be encouraging the child to have a join like this, so that the 2 letters are sitting next to each other. As you can see, as we're doing singular letters, I'm already encouraging a flick at the end because that helps me. You can see my first one, I can highlight to the child, oh, I've got a floater there, the letter's floating above, but as I had another turn, I improved and I made sure I had no floaters or sinkers. And it's just encouraging them. But if you've encouraged it twice and their writing isn't necessarily improving, praise them for what they've done, take a break or try different apparatus, because what we don't want is to keep seeing a child that's getting it wrong and for them to feel that they're failing. But at Woodlands, we say a fail is a first attempt in learning. So we've got fail, first attempt in learning. And if you use that approach at home as well, you'll see with your child that actually it's okay to start getting things wrong. So back to our joins, you can see in this book here, and we've uploaded all of these pages on the link below so that you can begin these joins. Do start with the first one if you feel that's more appropriate. If not, you might want to start with joins that are familiar to letters that are in their name or in names of people in your household, so that they'll be more confident with those letters to begin with. And then do encourage them to look at words with capital letters as well, so that they can move from 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 letters. But as you can see down here, when we start with joins, we do encourage children to start with patterns. Now this is really common that we do from early years to encourage mark making, which is the first start of letters. So your child will be better at this than you probably anticipate. So it's starting from the main point here and just showing that those links can go across, and then looking at how to make them even better. So now I've had a practice, how can I make that even neater? I'm going to look at making my letters a little bit closer together, a little bit smaller, and making sure that I've got no floaters or sinkers. So as you can see, I've already started to look at how to improve and give your child some encouragement. So, wow, your letters are even smaller than before. You've got a great flick at the end and none of them are floating and sinking. If your child then takes that praise to a new level and starts giving you handwriting like this, just encourage them that actually sometimes we can be so keen to make our handwriting small that sometimes it's too small. So look at the height of the letters that you've got. Obviously, if your child's got a workbook like this and they're working with a pen or a paper, then that size text would be fine. But obviously in a big space with a whiteboard, their handwriting would usually be a little bit higher. So once I've had a little practice at some mark making with join, then I'm going to move on to my actual join with the child. And that's when we'd model here the two separate letters, making sure their formation's correct, showing that they can hold hands and then bringing them together. So now I'm going to move on to using that within a word. I'm going to have an iced bun. So I'm going to start with bun, thinking about how it's got a capital letter. Now I've chosen this time to join a B and a U together because I'm familiar with that join. But if your child isn't, then you would do a singular letter to begin with and then start in the U. Now, as you can see, I'm picking it up here. Instead of starting at the top, I've chosen to start from the bottom. Your child may be more comfortable to start at the top and that is fine, but this is encouraging a join straight from a B. So if I show you, I'm going down from a B and then I would do that join and my letters would be close together, but I'd go up to my U and then into my N to flick. And the reason that we have that flick at the end is because if I was going to extend the word further, the flick shows that my join's moving on. So encourage that with other letters, but also encourage it with capital letters as well. So they've had that practice with lower and uppercase letters. So we never join a capital and a lower letter. We always make sure that we keep those separate. That's with any capital letter. So if your child's starting to write their name and they're going with a T or whatever letter they've got straight into their join, it's encouraging them and saying, actually, capital letters don't need to hold hands at all. They like to watch and they like to stand separate so that they can change into a lower if they need to, and encouraging them to make sure that those capital letters aren't attached to those lower cases at all. So as you can see, every time I practice, it's getting slightly neater. So please give as much praise to your child as possible. Go back to their starting point, find an area of their work that was their weakest. Say you've moved from that, there you can see you started with the two letters without a join. You started with joins, but look at the areas that were improved and then look at how that's improved from there. And we really hope that that helps you with joins. Please bear in mind, if your child finds handwriting difficult or they lack confidence in handwriting, the more varied approaches that you can take, the more that you're supporting their well-being. Thanks very much.